Hey friends, can you believe it's almost spring? To welcome the new season, I have a few wonderful picture books to go over with you today. First, I have a daffodil for you. Daffodils! First book I have is just the epitome of spring reading, the Beatrix Potter Treasury. Let me just share with you Peter Rabbit. Look at these quaint illustrations. So charming, right? So basically, if you're not familiar with Peter Rabbit, it is the story to start with. Little bunny. He runs off from his mother to explore Mr. McGregor's garden and eat his vegetables. He's having a delightful little time until he gets stuck on a fence. And Mr. McGregor goes after him with a vengeance. He makes it back home nonetheless, and his mother warns him, Peter, don't you ever do that again. You're very lucky. But Mr. McGregor decides to take Peter's clothes and hang them up as a scarecrow to ward off the other little curious bunnies. The Tale of Benjamin Bunny, and that is equally as good. It also has Peter Rabbit in it and his cousin Benjamin Bunny. And they get into some more mischief, but I will let you pick up the book and read that one for yourself. The next book I have is a book called Nesting. This book is so simple. It's mostly in black and white. Has a bit of robin's egg blue in it. It's written by Henry Cole. Here's the first picture. This book is all about the return of the robin. The male robin comes back at the end of winter and begins a bird song. That song specifically is meant to scare off other male birds and try to attract a mate. He finds a mom bird and they lay an egg. And they'll actually lay 3 more because robins apparently usually lay 4 eggs. The mom guards the nest and then she has the babies. Babies are so hungry, so mom and dad are constantly flying back and forth getting food for the babies. They begin to learn to fly and they fall a few times, right? But mom and dad are there to continue to try to help them learn to fly. Eventually they leave the nest and eat a bunch of berries in the fall, get a little fat, and then in a group they will stay together for the winter, or they will fly a bit south to stay warm and then return to their nesting grounds the next spring. Delightful, delightful book. Highly recommend it. The next book I have is just called A Tree is Nice, and it was written by Janice May Udry. I hope I'm saying her name correctly. This book was actually written in the 1950s. It's an oldie but a goodie. And a super simple story, just like the other one, but remarkable nonetheless. The intro just discusses how wonderful trees are, how they're grounded and simple. They make everything beautiful. And that is a quote from the book. It touches upon, even if you have only a single tree, that's good nonetheless. You don't need a whole forest. And then it mentions what treasures trees provide in the fall, like bonfires and colored leaves. Kids love to play in trees, pick the apples, play pretend, and of course, swing, right? Of course. Even the elderly love trees. Picnics. Everyone loves picnics under a tree. Super fun activity for spring. And it goes on to remark upon how trees can provide a bit of a barrier from the wind in harsher weather. You might like to plant a tree, and then if someone else sees the tree that you have planted, they might be inspired to plant a tree of their own. A Children's Garden of Verses is the next book, and it was written by Robert Louis Stevenson. Yes, the classic poet. This book, it's great to pick up in the spring because it has an entire section on garden days. Night and day, nest eggs, the flowers, summer sun, the dumb soldier, and then it goes on to the gardener, and historical associations, and those are all excellent to read this time of year. This particular edition has some really nice illustrations. Nest eggs. That looks like a robin's nest. Last line of this poem is, in spite of our wisdom and sensible talking, we on our feet must go plodding and walking. Something to ponder. Yeah, these poems are actually pretty deep. They are about children and meant to be enjoyed by children and adults, but they really show the depth of a child's mind, and that's just a neat thing for anyone to ponder. Last book I have is Drawing from Nature. This book is a little different. It is, like the name suggests, about drawing from nature, and it was written by Jim Arnosky in the 1980s. It's mostly in black and white, but it's kind of cool because you can actually read it like a little bit of a picture book style. It's not merely all information based. So sweet. And the author just discusses how he's drawn to water, and then he goes on to mention different ways to draw water. Creatures you might find at a pond. The author discusses his attraction to those creatures in a very poetic style, and then he goes on to describe how one might draw those creatures. Let me read you a line. Consider how the water you are drawing relates to the other subjects in your picture. To a water strider skating on a pond, the water is film-like. It's very poetic. So anyway, for joining me today, and if you do enjoy my content, I invite you to hit that like button, share, subscribe, all that good jazz. See you next time.